Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sanchari Rai Mukherjee, Ranjan University, respected distinguished speaker, Professor Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty, Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty, a renowned personalities, respected Dean, Faculty of Science and Management, respected Professor Ranjita Chakrabarty from Northern University, my dear colleagues, staff, students and research scholars. It is a great pleasure for us today's special lecture organized by the Department of Pol Science on Indo-Bangladesh bilateral relation. Indo-Bangladesh relation, actually Bangladesh, geographically, culturally, linguistically close with India. This is the most important part. And there are so many multicolored problems between two countries. Number one, illegal immigration. Number two, border issue. আমরা সকলে জানি যারা পশ্চিমবঙ্গে বসবাস করি এই মুহূর্তে হিলি বর্ডার, হিলি ছিটমহল বা হিলি এনক্লেভ মোস্ট সেন্সিটিভ এরিয়া। এই মুহূর্তে কোচবিহার, জলপাইগুড়ি পার্শ্ববর্তী যে ছিটমহল অনেকটা সমাধানের পথে। এই মুহূর্তে অসমের ধুবুরি জেলার দুটো ছিটমহল রয়েছে। একটা ছিটমহল হচ্ছে সোনাহাটার পাশে 200 কিলোমিটার দূরে, সেখানে কৃষকেরা, ভারতীয় কৃষকেরা যাচ্ছেন আবার ফিরে আসছেন ইত্যাদি। এই মুহূর্তে অসম মেঘালয় বর্ডারে ওয়াটার বাউন্ডারি মোস্ট ইম্পর্টেন্ট প্রবলেম। এই মুহূর্তে পুরা টু ময়মনসিংহ বর্ডার মোস্ট সেন্সিটিভ বর্ডার। সুতরাং এই ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডে এ ধরনের আলোচনা আমি মনে করি অত্যন্ত প্রাসঙ্গিক। তিস্তা জলবন্টন নীতি নিয়ে দীর্ঘদিন ধরে বাংলাদেশের সঙ্গে আমাদের টানাপোড়েন হয়েছে এবং তিস্তা এমন একটি নদী সারা পৃথিবীর মধ্যে যে নদীতে 50 কিলোমিটার অন্তর অন্তর বাঁধ দেওয়া হয়েছে। তিস্তা শুকিয়ে গেছে। সারা পৃথিবীতে এরকম কোন নদী আছে কিনা আমি জানি না। এবং তিস্তা সত্যি সত্যি শুকিয়ে গেছে। বাংলাদেশের রংপুর জেলার তামাক চাষিরা যখন এই তিস্তার জল পান না, ভাওয়াইয়া গানে উঠে এসছে তাদের ক্রন্দন। খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট কনটেক্সট। In this context, this special lecture will be truthful and valuable for us. Thank you to all.
Now I would request Professor Tiwari, Dean Science and Management, Ranjan University, to share his views.
Thank you, Department of Political Science, for giving me the opportunity to I am Dean of Faculty of Science and Management. And to be over here and to say not few lines. Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor Sanchari Rai Mukherjee, Honorable IFS officer, ambassador, and the man from the science, physics and astrophysics, Sri Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty. My colleague, Dean Faculty of Arts and Law, Professor Deepak Kumar Roy, and our chief speakers over here, one of the chief speakers, Professor Ranjita Chakrabarty from the Department of Political Science, North Bengal University. My dear colleagues, research scholars, dear students, others, distinguished guests, and those who are interested to take part in the seminar, to everyone, I welcome. Now, because my subject you know very well, every time I have required to speak, but anyhow, this is my passion, and I have my practice to go through subjects, and I have studied a lot of books based on what is Bangladesh, how was it created, what was the reason, is Bangladesh a separate entity? I feel today that Bangladesh is not a separate entity. It is a division in the family. The younger son has been separated, and the younger son and me is a conflict based on some issues. We have to see that how this relation can be improved, how this relation can be made, so that we can feel that emotionally we are one. It is not with the Bangladesh the same thing with the Pakistan. But now question comes that what is Bangladesh and why this Bangladesh is. What was the reason behind the creation of the Bangladesh, and who were accounted? On honest research work should be done. Not biased research work that you have made something hypothesis, you are going to think about that, whether you are going to reject or accept, that logic nowadays does not exist. The logic has been changed. You cannot say that negative of yes is no. There are many things between yes and no, and we have to see that what are the reasons. And when I start to think about that, and when I start to, please come in time, visual. Now, বলি একটুখানি বাংলাতে, তাহলে সবাই হয়তো সুবিধা হবে। আমি যখন ভেবে দেখি 1905 সাল থেকে ভাবি, 1905 সালে বঙ্গভঙ্গ বোধহয় ভারত ভঙ্গের একটি কারণ ছিল। বহু বইতে এটা স্টার্ট করা হয় যে 1905 থেকে 12 যদি ওই সময় আন্দোলন না হতো, তাহলে বোধহয় কমিউনাল ডিস্টারবেন্স হতো না, বোধহয় মুসলিম লীগের গঠন হতো না, বোধহয় মন্ত্রীর কাছে প্রেজেন্টেশন দেওয়া যেত না, সেপারেট ইলেকট্রেটের ডিমান্ড হতো না। এই জন্য নতুন করে 1955 ইন্ডিয়া ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্স অ্যাক্ট যেটা হয়েছে, ইন্ডিয়া অ্যাক্ট যেটা হয়েছিল, সেই বেসিসে সেপারেট ইলেকট্রেট দেওয়া হতো না। এই সমস্ত জিনিসগুলো বোধহয় ঘটতো না। কারণটা কি ছিল? যে ঢাকার নবাব, তার মধ্যে একটা ফিলিংস এসেছিল যে বোধহয় কলকাতায় যে আন্দোলন আরম্ভ হয়েছিল বঙ্গভঙ্গের বিরুদ্ধে, দুটো বঙ্গ তৈরি করা হয়েছিল। একটা বঙ্গ ছিল মুসলিমদের জন্য, একটা বঙ্গ ছিল হিন্দুদের জন্য। হিন্দু যারা ছিলেন তারাই কিন্তু মুসলিম জমিদার ছিলেন বাংলাদেশে। তাদের মনে হয়েছিল যে বোধহয় এই আন্দোলন করে ভাই বন্ধ করে দাও ভাই, একটু পাঞ্চুয়াল সবাই আসবেন।
না না, আর অ্যালাউ করতে মানা করো তো, আর ডোন্ট অ্যালাউ এনিওয়ান। ওকে স্যার প্লিজ কন্টিনিউ।
হ্যাঁ, তো এখন ব্যাপারটা হয়েছিল যে এরকম সিচুয়েশন 12 সালে আবার যখন বন্ধ হয়ে যায়, ঢাকা নবাবের কাছে, আপনারা যারা জানেন, ঢাকা নবাবের কাছে 1906 সালে একটি পলিটিক্যাল পার্টির প্রয়োজন পড়েছিল। তারা ভেবেছিল যে হিন্দুর পলিটিক্যাল পার্টি তারা কংগ্রেসকে ট্রিট করবে। তারা বলতো যে কংগ্রেস হচ্ছে একটা নন মুসলিমদের পলিটিক্যাল পার্টি, কিন্তু তাদের একটি পলিটিক্যাল পার্টি চাই যারা তাদের কথাগুলোকে তুলে ধরবে। কারণ কি তাদের কাছে কলকাতার বঙ্গভঙ্গ আন্দোলন একটি বড় সিগন্যাল দিয়েছিল। 1906 সালে ডিসেম্বর মাসে বাংলাদেশের ঢাকাতে মুসলিম লীগের জন্ম করা হয়। আর আপনারা যারা জানেন, আগা খাঁকে প্রেসিডেন্ট করা হয়েছিল। আগা খাঁ কিন্তু লন্ডনে থাকতেন। আগা খাঁ প্রেসিডেন্ট হওয়ার পর 1906 সালে সেই মুসলিম লীগের হেডকোয়ার্টার্স ঢাকায় করা হলো না, মুসলিম লীগের হেডকোয়ার্টার্স আলিগড়ে করা হলো। এলিট মুসলিম যারা ছিলেন ইউপি বা ভারতবর্ষে, তারা তাদের মেম্বার হয়েছিল। এখান থেকে আরম্ভ হলো এই চিন্তাধারা। 12 সালে যখন মার্চ হয়ে যায়, যখন 1911 সালে রবীন্দ্রনাথ ঠাকুরকে নোবেল প্রাইজ দেওয়া হয়, আর যখন 1912 সালে আবার দুটো বঙ্গ মার্চ করে যায়, তখন থেকে আস্তে আস্তে একটা ডিসকন্টেন্ট মুসলিমদের মধ্যে, মোহাম্মদদের মধ্যে তৈরি হতে আরম্ভ হয়। তো হতে হতে তারা দেখলো, তখন খিলাফত আন্দোলন আপনারা জানেন স্টার্ট হয়েছিল 1916 সালে। খিলাফত আন্দোলন তারকির খলিফার বিরুদ্ধে যে আন্দোলন ছিল, সেই একটুখানি তার কনসেন্ট্রেশনে ব্রেক খুলে যাবো মুখস্থ করা। 1916 সালে খিলাফত আন্দোলন আরম্ভ হয়েছিল। গান্ধীজি লখনৌতে মুসলিম কংগ্রেসের একসাথে কনফারেন্স হয়েছিল। সেই কনফারেন্সে প্যাক্ট হয়েছিল যে আমরা কিন্তু খিলাফত আন্দোলনকে সাপোর্ট করব। এই খিলাফত আন্দোলনকে সাপোর্ট করতে গেলে তখন একটি ভালো রিলেশন মুসলিম আর হিন্দু, এই যে কংগ্রেস আর মুসলিম লীগের মধ্যে আরম্ভ হয়েছিল, এই খিলাফত আন্দোলনের পর দেখা যাচ্ছে যে আবার আস্তে আস্তে রিলেশন আমাদের স্ট্রেন হতে আরম্ভ হয়ে গেল। যাই হোক, যা হলো হলো। প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে যে বাংলাদেশ 1940 23rd মার্চ নিশ্চয়ই যদি জিজ্ঞেস করা হয় কেন ইম্পর্টেন্ট in the political history of India, আমি যদি জিজ্ঞেস করি how many of people can raise the hand and say that why it is important, this is the day 23rd March 1940 লাহোর মুসলিম লীগের কনফারেন্সের মধ্যে রেজলিউশন করা হয়েছিল যে আমরা পাকিস্তান একটি সেপারেট স্টেট চাচ্ছি। সেই রেজলিউশনের মুভ যিনি করেছিলেন, আমি দুটো বইতে দেখলাম, একটা বইতে একটু ডিফার আছে, কিন্তু বলবো 1940 এই রেজলিউশনকে মুভ করেছিলেন তৎকালীন বাংলার প্রধানমন্ত্রী ফজলুল হক এই রেজলিউশনকে মুভ করেছিলেন। রেজলিউশন পাস হয়েছিল যে আমরা আর কিছু ডিবেটে অনেক বই আছে, অনেক গল্প আছে, অনেক চর্চা আছে, ছোট ছোট পয়েন্ট বলে দিচ্ছি, যেহেতু ইউনিভার্সিটি আর ছেলেরা রিসার্চ ওয়ার্কার রেফারেন্স হিসাবে নেবে, তারা কিন্তু পড়বে। তার 1940 যখন রেজলিউশন পাস হয়, ফজলুল হক মুভ করেন যে আমাদের পাকিস্তান চাই। তার আগে এটা এসেছিল যে আমরা রিপ্রেজেন্টেশন দেব, রিজার্ভেশন দেব ফর মুসলিম কনস্টিটিউয়েন্ট অ্যাসেম্বলিতে। তখন দেখা গেছিল পশ্চিমবঙ্গ লেজিসলেটিভ কাউন্সিল যেটা হয়েছিল, সেটাতে ইলেকশন যখন হয়েছিল, সেই ইলেকশনে ভারতবর্ষে বেঙ্গল একমাত্র রাজ্য ছিল, ফর ইউর কাইন্ড ইনফরমেশন, বেঙ্গল একমাত্র রাজ্য ছিল যে মুসলিম লীগ অ্যাবসলিউট মেজরিটি পেয়েছিল। অন্য কোন রাজ্যে মুসলিম লীগের ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট ভারতবর্ষের সরকার তৈরি হয়নি। বাংলাই একমাত্র রাজ্য ছিল যেখানে মুসলিম লীগ অ্যাবসলিউট মেজরিটি নিয়ে সরকার তৈরি করেন। ফজলুল হক তাদের প্রধানমন্ত্রী হন, তখন প্রধানমন্ত্রী হন। ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্সের পরেও ভারতবর্ষে কিছুদিনের জন্য বিভিন্ন রাজ্যে প্রধানমন্ত্রী হয়েছিলেন। আপনারা যদি দেখেন তাহলে 1947 আফটার 15th আগস্ট আমাদের প্রফুল্ল ঘোষ এখানকার প্রধানমন্ত্রী কিছুদিন ছিলেন, পরে তাকে মুখ্যমন্ত্রী কনভার্ট করা হয়েছিল। তখন 4 জন প্রধানমন্ত্রী স্টেট লেভেলে থাকতেন। পলিটিক্যাল সায়েন্সের ম্যাডাম আছেন, তারা বলবেন, তারা শেয়ার করবেন যদি ডিফার হয়। তো দেখা হলো যে পরে ফজলুল হককে কিন্তু মুসলিম লীগ থেকে বের করে দেওয়া। দেখা হলো ফজলুল হক হয়তো মনে মনে ভাবতেন যে বোধহয় আমরা পাকিস্তান যে শব্দটা এসেছিল তাতে মুসলিম লীগের কনসেপ্ট কিন্তু অন্যায় যদি বলা যায় না, আমি ওই দিকে কিন্তু আলাদা ডিসকাস করবো আর ঘন্টার পর ঘন্টা এরকম ডিবেট করবো। সেখানে ছিল যে মেজরিটি যে প্রভিন্সে মুসলিমরা থাকবে সেই প্রভিন্স কিন্তু যদি পাকিস্তান হয় তাকে দিয়ে দিতে হবে। বেঙ্গলের কম্পিটিশন এমন ভাবে ছিল যে হিন্দু মুসলিম বা ভারতবর্ষেরই কম্পিটিশন, কিন্তু আমরা যারা ম্যাক্সিমাম যারা মুসলিম হই বা হিন্দু হই, কিন্তু আমরা একই ফ্যামিলি একই ট্রি থেকে আমরা কিন্তু পার্টিশন হয়েছি। আমারই ফ্যামিলির কিছু মেম্বার ওই ধর্মকে অ্যাকসেপ্ট করেন, কিছু লোক ওই ধর্মকে মানেন না, এই ধর্মকে মানেন, কিন্তু ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ডে আমরা একই ফ্যামিলি। সেখানে আমার বাড়ির পাশে বাড়ির যে মেম্বার সেই হতে ওই রিলিজিয়ন বাইরে থেকে সেটেলমেন্ট করানো হয়নি। এটা খুব বড় প্রবলেম যে তারা এখান থেকে ওখানে কোথায় যাবে বা ওখান থেকে এখানে কোথায় আসবে, এই প্রবলেমটা ছিল। 6টি রাজ্য আপনাদেরকে বলি ভারতবর্ষে ছিল, যার মধ্যে নর্থ ইস্ট ফ্রন্টিয়ার প্রভিন্স, সিন্ধ, পাঞ্জাব and mainly বেঙ্গল। তাদের মধ্যে বেঙ্গলটা টোটালটাই যেহেতু percentage of Muslim votes were in favor of to get the entire Bengal for the Pakistan। সেখানে একটা বিরাট প্রবলেম ছিল যে কি করা যাবে না করা যাবে। মুজিবুর রহমান was the student of present Maulana Azad College, that time it was said Islamia College। ইসলামিয়া কলেজের ছাত্র ছিলেন মৌলানা মুজিবুর রহমান। 1941-42 ক্যালকাটা এই যে পাকিস্তান করা একটা প্রিন্সিপাল মুসলিম লীগের ছিল যে আমরা পাকিস্তান করব, তার সব থেকে বড় মুভার ছিলেন, সব থেকে বড় অ্যাক্টিভিস্ট ছিলেন। তার কাজ ছিল যেহেতু ওখানে ওই ইলিয়াট রোডে যে হোস্টেল ছিল সেই হোস্টেলে থাকতেন, আর উনি ইসলামিয়া কলেজ থেকে এসে প্রায় সোহরাওয়ার্দীর কাছে ফজলুল হক সাহেবের কাছে তো পরে যেতেন, কিন্তু সোহরাওয়ার্দী সাহেব পাশেই হকি থিয়েটার রোডে থাকতেন। থিয়েটার রোডে আজকে যেতে বলা শেক্সপিয়ার সরণিতে থাকতেন। সেখানে এটা নিয়ে আন্দোলন হতো, ভাবা হতো যে কি করে আমরা পাকিস্তান তৈরি করব। সেখান থেকে এক বিন্দু আমরা আলাদা হব না। পাকিস্তান তৈরি করার জন্য যত রকমের আন্দোলন করতে হয়, আন্দোলনে সবাই জানেন যে আপনারা কিরকম হচ্ছে, কে রেসপন্সিবল আমি যাচ্ছি না। দেখা গেল অল অফ দিস সার্টেন তাদের একটি ধারণা ছিল, আর আরো এটা ক্লিয়ার ছিল, ধারণা না, আপনি লেখা করবেন। আর ওনার যেটা আছে কি বইটার নাম হচ্ছে মুজিবুর রহমান আত্ম বার্তানা কি এরকম টাইপের একটা বই আছে আমার কাছে, টাইপিং বলতে পারছি না। তাতে উনি লিখছেন যে আমরা জানতাম যে ক্যালকাটা উইল বিকাম দ্য ক্যাপিটাল অফ পাকিস্তান। ক্যালকাটাকে পাকিস্তানের ক্যাপিটাল করবেন, করাচিকে পাকিস্তানের ক্যাপিটাল করা হবে না, করাচি ক্যালকাটা করা হবে। কিন্তু অল অফ এ সাডেন যখন পাকিস্তান হলো, কলকাতার মুসলিম যারা লিডার ছিলেন তারা কিন্তু ভালো করে জানতে পারলেন না, দেখলেন যে একটা পার্ট, সেই পার্টের আগে আপনাকে বলি ডিসিশন ছিল শরৎচন্দ্র বোস, বহু পয়েন্ট চলে আসে। শরৎচন্দ্র বোস went to Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru. এখানে ডিসিশন হলো যে বেঙ্গল পুরো ইউনাইটেড থাকবে, বেঙ্গল ইউনাইটেড থাকলে either it will go to Pakistan or it will remain in the Hindustan, অথবা সেপারেট এন্টিটি থাকে। গান্ধীজি, যেটা আমি পড়ছিলাম এটা মুজিবুর রহমানের বইতে, গান্ধীজি বললেন যে তুমি বল্লভ ভাই প্যাটেলের সঙ্গে দেখা করো। বল্লভ ভাই প্যাটেলের কাছে দেখা গেলে বল্লভ ভাই প্যাটেল যেটা মুজিবুর রহমান লিখছেন, প্যাটেল বললেন যে আপনার কি পাগলামো ধরেছে, আপনি কি পাগলামি হয়েছেন যে আপনি আলাদা নিয়ে থাকতে পারেন বেঙ্গলকে, যদি বেঙ্গলকে আলাদা নেন তাতে টোটাল বেঙ্গলটাই পাকিস্তানে চলে যাবে, টোটাল বেঙ্গল পাকিস্তানে যাবে, কারণ কি মেজরিটি অফ দ্য পিপল আর মুসলিম স্পিকিং, মহামদান স্পিকিং, and they will take it in the Pakistan. আপনি ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট থাকতে পারেন না। লিয়াকত-ই জিন্না তারা কিন্তু এখানকার যারা লিডার ছিলেন তাদের বেনামি অল অফ এ সাডেন আপনারা জানেন যে একটা পাকিস্তান হয়ে গেল। সেই পাকিস্তানের জন্য মুজিবুর রহমানের খুব কিন্তু আপত্তি ছিল, কিন্তু যারা মুসলিম এরিয়া তারা বলছে যে ওই পাকিস্তানেও আমরা শিয়ালদা স্টেশন পর্যন্ত যেতাম। ভেবে দেখুন, ওই পাকিস্তান যেভাবে বলা হয়েছে তাতে আমরা শিয়ালদা স্টেশন পর্যন্ত পেতাম, আমরা নদিয়া ডিস্ট্রিক্ট পেতাম, আমরা মালদা 50-50 ছিল, মালদাও পেতে পারতাম, আমরা দিনাজপুর পেতে পারতাম, আমরা মুর্শিদাবাদ পেতে পারতাম, কিন্তু আমরা এইসব ডিস্ট্রিক্ট গুলো মুসলিম মেজরিটি, শুধু মেজরিটি ডিস্ট্রিক্ট যার লিডার ছিলেন আসামি, তাকে কিন্তু নিয়ে এসে রেখে দেওয়া হয়েছে। আসামটাও টোটাল পাওয়ার কথা ছিল। এই পাকিস্তানটা এমন ভাবে হলো যে পাকিস্তানটা কি কনসেপ্টে ছিল বোঝায়, বেঙ্গল আর হুগলি নদীর ধারে যে ইন্ডাস্ট্রি গুলো ছিল সেই ইন্ডাস্ট্রি গুলো ক্যালকাটা পোর্টকে বাঁচাবার জন্য ক্লিফ স্যারকে বলা হয়েছিল যে আপনি এমন ভাবে পাকিস্তান করবেন যাতে আমরা এদেরকে বাঁচাতে পারি, নাহলে আমার ক্যালকাটা পোর্ট বাঁচানো মুশকিল হয়ে যাবে, আমার ইন্ডাস্ট্রিয়াল এড বাঁচানো মুশকিল হয়ে যাবে। আর ক্লিফ স্যার আপনারা জানেন খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং যে এমন ভাবে পার্টিশন হয়েছে, বোধহয় লোকরা বলে যে উনি ঘুমিয়ে পড়েছিলেন, ঘুমন্ত অবস্থায় ম্যাপের উপরে পেন্সিল ড্র করে দিয়েছিলেন। তার পরিপ্রেক্ষিতে যে ছিল যে হিলের কাছে কিছু বাড়ি, বাড়ির মধ্যে রান্নাঘর পড়ে গেল পাকিস্তানে, শোয়াঘর পড়ে গেল হিন্দুস্তানে, এরকম ভাবে পাকিস্তান হয়ে গেল। ভেবে দেখুন একই ফ্যামিলিতে কিভাবে পাকিস্তান হলো, রান্নাঘর চলে গেল পাকিস্তানে, শোয়াঘর চলে গেল হিন্দুস্তানে। আজকে তাদের রমরমা বাজার, কারণ কি রান্নার ঘরে স্মাগলিং গুডস রাখে, একটু অন্ধকার হলে ভারতে ওই ঘরে রেখে দেওয়া চলে যায়। প্রবলেম যেটা হলো যে পাকিস্তানের ক্ষেত্রে বাংলাদেশে যারা মুসলিম জানেন তাদের কাছে প্রবলেম সেদিন থেকেই স্টার্ট হয়ে গেল। কেন কি অ্যাকচুয়ালি পাকিস্তানের ক্যাপিটাল আমার মধ্যে হওয়া উচিত ছিল ঢাকাতে, কিন্তু পাকিস্তানের ক্যাপিটাল হয়ে গেল করাচিতে। জিওগ্রাফিক্যালি ইস্ট বেঙ্গল ইজ মোর গ্রেটার দেন ওয়েস্ট পাকিস্তান। তার কারণ সে জিওগ্রাফিক্যালি নট অনলি দ্যাট, আপনারা যদি এখান থেকে স্টাডি করেন পলিটিক্যালি দেখবেন যে দেখা গেল যে যখন 1940-তে 23rd মার্চ রেজলিউশন করা হয়েছিল, সেই রেজলিউশনে ছিল যে পাকিস্তান হবে, কিন্তু তাদের মধ্যে দুটো সোভারেন স্টেট থাকবে, ইস্ট পাকিস্তান এন্ড ওয়েস্ট পাকিস্তান। যাদেরকে বলি ইস্ট পাকিস্তান ওয়ার্ডটা 1955 এসেছিল আফটার 23rd মার্চ, তার আগে ইস্ট বেঙ্গল বলে ওদেরকে জানা হতো। বলা হয়েছিল যে তাদেরকে দুটো ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট সোভারেন থাকবে, তাদের কেউ কিন্তু একা এক অপরিক নেতৃত্ব দেবে না। এই সোভরেন ওয়ার্ডটা না থাকার জন্য যখন জিনা সাহেব এসেছিলেন রেসকোর্স ময়দানে লেকচার দিচ্ছিলেন, আর যখন উনি বলেছিলেন যেটা পাকিস্তান আইনসভায় ডিবেট হয়েছিল যে বাংলাকে রাষ্ট্রভাষা করা যাবে কি যাবে না, এই আইনসভার ডিবেট যখন হয়েছিল ধীরেন্দ্রনাথ মঠপতি চক্রবর্তী নাকি তাকে সামনে বলতে পারছি না, উনি এটা মুভ করেছিলেন। মুভের পর ওখানে কিন্তু লিয়াকত আলী রেগে গেছিলেন যে উর্দু ছাড়া কোনো ভাষা পড়া যাবে না, বাংলাকে মারা যাবে না। তখন যখন এসে জিনা সাহেব এই কথাটা বলেছিলেন রেসকোর্স গ্রাউন্ডে যে না, মুসলিম উর্দুই একটি ভাষা থাকবে যেটি রাষ্ট্রভাষা হবে, বাংলা ভাষাকে করা যাবে না, সেখান থেকে রিসেন্টমেন্ট আন্দোলন হলো, আস্তে আস্তে আন্দোলন কিভাবে চললো একটা ওটাই কারণ শোনায়। মেন কারণ আপনারা যদি দেখেন তাহলে 7 ডিসেম্বর 1970 তে কনস্টিটিউয়েন্ট অ্যাসেম্বলি, সরি এক মিনিট, 7 December 1970 is a খুব important factor in the history of the creation of the Bangladesh. ওখানে ইলেকশন হয় ন্যাশনাল অ্যাসেম্বলি পাকিস্তানে 7 ডিসেম্বর 1970। বাংলাদেশ ন্যাশনাল অ্যাসেম্বলিতে 300 খানিক সিট ছিল, 300 সিটস ওয়্যার দেয়ার। 162 সিট ছিল ইস্ট পাকিস্তানে and 138 সিট ছিল ওয়েস্ট পাকিস্তানে। 138 and 162 সিটের মধ্যে 160 সিট কিন্তু পেয়েছিলেন শেখ মুজিবুর রহমান, তার আওয়ামী পার্টি। কিন্তু জুলফিকার আলী ভুট্টো, পাকিস্তান পিপলস পার্টির লিডার, only got 88 উনি সিট পান। 160 সিট পান মুজিবুর রহমান, কিন্তু ইয়াহিয়া খান was the marshal. Yahya Khan did not allow him to become the prime minister of Pakistan. তাদের মধ্যে কি ছিল যে তারা আজকে কিছু লোকরা ভেবে দেখবেন তারা ইস্ট বেঙ্গলের মুসলিমকে ইনফিরিয়ার ভাবত, ওয়েস্ট পাকিস্তানের মুসলিমরা সিয়া, বলুচি, পাঞ্জাবি, বেঙ্গলের মুসলিমকে সেভাবে ট্রিটমেন্ট দিত না, ইনফিরিয়ার মুসলিম হিসাবে ট্রিটমেন্ট দিত, বলতো যে তারা আবার কি প্রাইম মিনিস্টার হবে। এই রিসেন্টমেন্টের পর 23 মার্চ 1971 যখন আবার ইয়াহিয়া খান ঢাকাতে আসেন, ঢাকায় এসে বলেন যে মুজিবুর রহমানের 6 সূত্রে যেটি প্ল্যান ছিল আমি ওটা মেনে নিচ্ছি, কিন্তু মানলেন না, ধোকা দিলেন। পরের দিনই উনি ডিসআর্ম করে সমস্ত সিকিউরিটিদেরকে ব্রুটালি অ্যাটাক করিয়ে দিলেন, আর ওখান থেকে মুজিবুর রহমানকে অ্যারেস্ট করে ইসলামাবাদ নিয়ে চলে যান। আপনারা জানেন এপ্রিল মাসে ইন্ডিপেন্ডেন্ট গভর্নমেন্ট গঠন করা হয় আগরতলাতে, and Tajuddin Ahmad becomes the prime minister, Nazrul Islam becomes the working president, and Mujibur Rahman was declared the president. Chattogram University vice chancellor Mr. Malik went to Agartala থেকে ক্যালকাটা, and ক্যালকাটাতে 1972 তে ক্যালকাটা ইউনিভার্সিটি ভাইস চ্যান্সেলর ছিলেন প্রফেসর সত্যেন সেন। In the leadership of Professor Sultan Sen, Dilip Chakrabarty was the professor of City College. He was the prominent leader. তাদের দিয়ে একটা কমিটি গঠন করা হয়, সারা পৃথিবীতে সারা জায়গায় ঘুরে ঘুরে লোককে অর্গানাইজ করা হয়। মিসেস গান্ধী went to, তার আগে যখন আমেরিকাতে গেছিলেন আপনারা জানেন আমাদের কাছে কত প্রবলেম ছিল। 90 লাখ রিফিউজি কেম টু আওয়ার কান্ট্রি। তাদের থাকা নিয়ে প্রবলেম ছিল, তাদেরকে শিক্ষা দিয়ে দেওয়ার জন্য প্রবলেম ছিল, সমস্ত প্রাইমারি স্কুল আমাদের অকুপাইড হয়ে গেছিল, আমাদের কাছে ছেলেমেয়েদেরকে পড়ানো মুশকিল হয়ে গেছিল, তাদেরকে কোথায় রাখা হবে। এই तमाम পরিস্থিতি দিয়ে অন্তত বাংলাদেশ 17 ডিসেম্বর 1971 স্বাধীনতা লাভ করে। মুজিবুর রহমান প্রেসিডেন্ট হয়। প্রশ্ন হচ্ছে 15 আগস্ট 1975 ইন দ্য মর্নিং অফ 4 o'clock একজনকে বাদ দিয়ে মুজিবুর রহমানের সমস্ত ফ্যামিলিকে মেজর ডালিম হত্যা করে দেয়। এই পয়েন্টগুলো বলছি ব্রুটালি। The day was 15th August 1975 in the morning. Entire family কে মেজর ডালিম হত্যা করে দেন। তার পেছনে অনেক হিস্ট্রি আছে যে মেজর মুজিবুর রহমানের বড় ছেলে মিস্টার কামাল, তার উপরে ফায়ারিং হয়েছিল। ফায়ারিং এই জন্য হয়েছিল যে ব্যাংক ডাকাতিতে বলা হয়েছিল উনি ইনভলভ ছিলেন। তাদের ওই যে একজন আর্মি অফিসারের ফ্যামিলিকে ডিস্টর্ব করার জন্য এলিগেশন ছিল। হোয়াট এভার মেবি দিস আর দ্য ফ্যাক্টস অফ দ্য হিস্ট্রি। কিন্তু পরবর্তীকালে 75 এর পর আপনারা জানেন যে কত রকমের সরকার হয়েছে, কত রকমের হয়েছে। মিস্টার ভাসানি যিনি লিডার ছিলেন সিরিয়াত গিয়েছিলেন, তিনি আমাদের ফারাক্কা ভাঙার জন্য প্রসেশনে নেতৃত্ব দিতে আরম্ভ করেছিলেন যে আই উইল ডিস্ট্রয় দ্য ফারাক্কা ফোর্ট। আর সবথেকে বড়, মুজিবুর রহমানের জন্য আমরা অত বললাম, মুজিবুর রহমান প্রথম ট্রেড ব্যান্ড করলেন, ম্যাডাম হরিও মোজার ট্রেড ব্যান্ড করলেন 1972-তে। উনি বললেন ভারতের সাথে কোনো প্রাইভেট ট্রেড হবে না। দিস ওয়াজ দ্য, and ultimately আপনারা জানেন যে আমাদের বাংলাদেশের সাথে রিলেশন ডিক্রিয়েট হয়ে যায়, খারাপ হয়ে যায়, এমন অবস্থায় পৌঁছে যায়। আর ওয়াটার যেটা ম্যাডাম বলছিলেন, আপনাকে বলি 1996-এ গভর্নমেন্ট অফ ইন্ডিয়া জ্যোতি বসুর নেতৃত্বে একটি কমিটি গঠন করেছিল। জ্যোতিবাবু went to Dhaka, 30,000 cubic of water in the summer session he given to Bangladesh, and that is the reason that now we are facing problem for our Calcutta port. It is not in 1970. আর তিস্তার নিয়ে গভর্নমেন্টের এটাই পলিসি যে গভর্নমেন্ট ওয়ান দ্যাট চ্যানেলাইজ দ্য ওয়াটার। তাদের যে ডিমান্ড আছে পদ্মা নদীর জন্য অন্য জায়গা থেকে জল দেওয়া হোক, কিন্তু গভর্নমেন্ট অফ বেঙ্গল ইজ নট।
হ্যাঁ, উনি আরো কতক্ষণ বলবেন? মানে হিজ টু লং।
Special lecture series. Now I will request our Professor Ranjan Chakrabarty to speak few words. Very quick, ma'am, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, respected Vice Chancellor, Madam, respected Dean, Faculty of Arts, respected Dean Science, Faculty of Science and Law, Science and Management, and also the Department of Political Science. So my first thanks goes to the University of Ranjan for organizing the distinguished lecture series under the Videsh Niti lecture series, and inviting Mr. Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty, who is not just a diplomat par excellence, but also an accomplished scholar, and he is a scholar in his own right. Actually, I have known you, sir, through your writing. So this is the first time I am meeting you, virtually, of course. Now, Bangladesh and India, we actually share a lot of our culture, history, language, and there are a lot of similarities. And staying or speaking from here in Raiganj, which is very close to Bangladesh, the three northern Bangladesh districts of Panchagor, Dinajpur, and Thakurgaon. These are the three major districts which are very near to Raiganj, and it holds a special meaning for the region also to hold such a discussion on Indo-Bangladesh bilateral relations. I know I will not, we are all eager to listen to you, Mr. Chakrabarty, and I know you would be focusing on the various issues that have been solved through maritime delimitation, through border management, through various treaties, and also focus on those areas which have not been solved, which are waiting to be resolved. Say, for example, the issue of, again, illegal migration, trafficking of human beings and goods across the border, border management, use of the territory within Bangladesh for carrying out insurgent activities within India, and also the emerging issues which are related to the Actist policy, especially the alternative inland waterways, the short sea shipping arrangements that are to be made. And as a scholar, as a teacher, as well as a researcher, also I would expect you to focus on the priority areas that needs to be taken note of, where we can carry out. I'm not talking about just the trade, commerce, cultural exchanges in the forms of sports, literature, music, films, but also in terms of how, as a university, this particular university can gain in terms of educational exchange programs, programs of researcher exchange, faculty exchange, and development of joint research programs which would not only benefit the Indo-Bangla ties but also benefit both the regions and develop new grounds of engagement. With that, we are all looking forward to your lecture, sir. Thank you all.
We are honored, we are grateful to Sri Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty, former Ambassador of Government of India, for accepting our invitation, and Sir will enlighten us with his lecture today on this special theme, Indo-Bangladesh bilateral relation. Before I request Sir to present his lecture, I would like to say few words about Ambassador Sir. Sir Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty, born in Lucknow, and he has finished his schooling from Dehradun. Thereafter, he obtaining a postgraduate degree in physics and astrophysics from University of Delhi. Then Sri Chakrabarty joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1977. He has served in Indian diplomatic mission in Cairo, Jeddah, and London. He was Consul General of India in Karachi from 1994 to 1995. Consular Ministry DCM at the Indian Embassy in Tel Aviv, Israel from 1995 to 1999, and Deputy High Commissioner at Dhaka from 1999 to 2002. At the Ministry of External Affairs, he served as Deputy Chief Protocol Deputy Secretary, a Director in the American Division, and Deputy Coordinator, SAARC Summit Secretariat in 1995. He was the Chief of Protocol from 2002 to 2006, after which he served as High Commissioner to Bangladesh from 2007 to 2009, then as Ambassador to Thailand from 2009 to 2011. He was appointed Special Secretary in 2011 and thereafter Secretary in Economic Relations in Ministry of External Affairs. Currently, he is a visiting fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, which is one of India's leading think tanks. During his career in the Indian Foreign Service, he has dealt with a wide range of political, trade, economic, press, information, culture, and consular issues. As High Commissioner to Bangladesh, he has instrumental in promoting the electricity grid connectivity agreement, which has led to transfer or sale of power to Bangladesh. He also drafted the initial concept proposal for the land boundary agreement, which solves the undemarcated border enclaves and adverse positions. As ambassador to Thailand, he coordinated negotiations for setting up the framework for establishment of the BIMSTEC Secretariat, negotiations on free trade agreements, civil aviation agreements, and other bilateral agreements. He has negotiated inter alia nuclear and intellectual property rights issues with the USA during his stint as director in Ministry of External Affairs. When posted in Israel, he handled India's crucial defense ties, which led to acquisitions of sensitive technologies and hardware. As Secretary in Ministry of External Affairs, he coordinated trade, economic, investment-related negotiations with various countries. He was the Sherpa for BRICS negotiations and supervised India's lines of credit to various countries. He was a member of the board of directors of the Exim Bank in his capacity as Secretary in Ministry of External Affairs. Sri Chakrabarty is a regular contributor to newspapers and publications on international issues and Indian foreign policies. He has published more than 150 articles, 4 book chapters, and several book reviews. He lectures on foreign policy at various institutions in India and abroad. He comments frequently on TV programs and debates, obviously, on the topic of Indian foreign policy. Now I hold my words and request Ambassador Sir to take the stage. Thank you.
Okay, I think my turn has come, is it?
Yes, finally, sir.
Should I start? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, can you upload the PowerPoint?
Yes, sir, we are doing, sir.
Can I have the PowerPoint on the screen, please?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we are arranging, sir. It's almost ready, sir.
Okay, I think I can see that. Should I begin?
Yes, sir, you can continue, sir.
Are you ready?
Yes, sir, we are ready, sir.
Good afternoon. We began in the morning, but now it's afternoon. And may I also thank the university, particularly the Vice Chancellor, for gracing this occasion, and also the distinguished faculty members, and of course all the other teachers and students. Shudhanta, I owe you particularly a very, very hearty sort of thanks for your persistence in pursuing me and to get me to this platform. I am personally very sorry that I am not there in person, but because of a slight illness, a sudden slight viral illness. It was not the COVID, let me assure you, even from this distance, and you are not in any danger. So I think we've already heard a lot about Bangladesh, and of course the Vice Chancellor made some very pertinent points, which I'm going to cover in some detail. Mine is not a very academic lecture, it is a diplomat's view. And as diplomats, let me, I think just to lighten the mood, tell you a couple of jokes that the diplomats exchange when we meet. So what is the definition of a diplomat? One of the funniest ones that I have seen is that a diplomat thinks thrice before saying nothing. So I think it's an indication that a diplomat must keep his eyes and ears open and say very little. But not quite, of course, a retired diplomat can ignore that. The other one, of course, is that it's also funny, and I think I should share it with you, is that a diplomat relies on persuasion. That is the main tool that he has, and that he can, as a diplomat, can persuade you to go to hell, and you look forward to that journey. So that is a diplomat's role, how to deal with people, etc. Now, my lecture is a broad-based one, and with some micro issues that I will touch upon. I will also talk a little bit about what drives Indian foreign policy, and where do we come from? Why do we do what we do in terms of Indian foreign policy? So I think the next slide I would like to have. So as you can see, I will not read out everything. You can have this copies, they are already available there. But basically, I would focus on something that drives foreign policy, which is, it is not necessary to say, but a part of our whole national policy. So domestic transport, and essentially driven by demands of development and security. That has been our goal since independence. Essentially, the usual goals are protection of territorial integrity and development, etc. So I think this is the other factor that has underpinned India's foreign policy since independence. Is this search for a strategic autonomy, that we will decide for ourselves what we want. And you have all seen it, you are aware of it, what happened during the Cold War years, etc. And one of the recent manifestation of this strategic autonomy has been our position on the Ukraine war, which you must have read. So we basically would reject any external pressure and decide for ourselves. And that is why we are increasing our purchase of oil from Russia. And why not? Next slide.
নেক্সট সাইডে যেতে পারছি না
ডাউনলোড করে নাও ডাউনলোড করে নিয়ে
হ্যাঁ এখন থেকে কল করো
Sir, could you upload the next slide, please?
Sir, little bit internet disturbance we are arranging very soon, sir. Sorry for the inconvenience, sir.
There is a speaking, but you won't see the slide.
Sir, ready. Please accept it.
The second slide is there. Good.
Sir,
Would somebody be there to upload the slides?
Just say that we can see the slide.
yes, sir, we can see the slide. You can continue, sir.
Shall I start again?
Yes, sir, yes, sir. You can continue, sir.
No, okay. This is the second slide, and I want to highlight certain points here about what certain our prime ministers have said on record. Like Vajpayee said that you can change friends but not neighbors. Now, these are some very fundamental issues that arise when you look at our neighbors. Now, the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh also said a few things while he addressed us when we were ambassadors for his sort of take on Indian foreign policy. That India's relations with the world and etc. are increasingly shaped by our development priorities. The single most objective of Indian foreign policy has to be to create a global environment conducive to the well-being of our great country. Now, these are some of the issues that have, that have informed our foreign policy makers, particularly our prime ministers who have led the nation. And it is also a factor that Manmohan Singh has highlighted, that it is not just our national interest, but also certain values like, democracy, pluralism, etc., secular, liberal, and all things that we talk about and which are there in our constitution. Can you please change? But we now tell you what that this has gone on, and right up to now, Prime Minister Modi, who who clearly also articulated the same kind of a thought, like when he said that the single most important objective of Indian foreign policy has to be to create a global environment conducive to the well-being of India. And also he shared also the similar thoughts that we have. Clearly, the neighborhood is the starting point for Indian foreign policy in many ways, something which is there in our strategic thought since the days of Kautilya. Next slide, please. The subcontinental neighbors have always had a special niche in India's foreign policy. Despite the political borders, the subcontinent binds the people living in this geography via historical and civilization links. And this intimacy influences foreign policy of all countries in various degrees. India's neighborhood first policy, enunciated by PM Modi, is a more robust version of the neighborhood policy followed by earlier governments. But there are challenges, and of course there are, which I shall come to later. And India's traditional links, etc., depend a lot on our relationship with these countries. Next slide, please. The other factors that deeply influence India's or any country's foreign policy is and demands adaptation to these major changes are seminal or catastrophic or cataclysmic international developments. So there are constant challenges in foreign policy, and so we have to keep meeting them and finding solutions for how to adjust to this thing. Now, as I said, the neighborhood is our first circle, and because it is an immutable fact of geography, that you cannot, the neighborhood cannot be wished away. You have to deal with it. So very much the neighborhood plays a large part in it, and I believe that the external environment in the first circle, which consists of our neighbors, is very important for India. Next slide, please. So when PM Modi took over the Prime Ministership in 2014, one of his first acts was to invite all the SAARC leaders for his swearing-in ceremony. Now, why did he do that? I think he did it realizing fully well that there is a continuity in foreign policy that gives a certain status and a privilege and a special niche to the neighborhood. And he said the nation's destiny is linked to its neighborhood. That is why my government has placed the highest priority on advancing friendship and cooperation with our neighbors. This is what PM Modi said at the 69th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2014. Next slide, please. We are very fond of using the terms geopolitics and geoeconomics now. Now, geo, of course, means geography, and geography has bequeathed India certain distinguished features. Because we are 80% of the land area, population, GDP, and other socio-economic indices, we are the largest country in the subcontinent. We have land borders with 5 SAARC countries and maritime border with 2. Except Afghanistan and Pakistan, no other country shares a land border with another SAARC country. And there are 2 landlocked countries, 3 actually, Afghanistan, Bhutan, and Nepal. And Sri Lanka is an island, and the Maldives is an archipelago. So this is the kind of geography we are dealing with. But then there is also the problem, since India is the biggest country, there is this asymmetry between the comprehensive national power and almost everything. The legacy of colonialism, partition, generates a very deep-rooted fears and complexes when you start dealing with these countries. And because they are always wary of India's intentions. So the refrain of a big brother is a constant reminder of this asymmetry. India's democracy, state institutions, economic growth, soft power, and social development also influence India's neighbors. Bollywood, for example, is a very important aspect of this soft power. Next slide, please. But there is also another factor that influences the foreign policy of mainly our neighbors, and that is their own domestic politics. And India becomes a factor in their domestic politics. You have pro and anti-Indian, not anti, but those who don't like certain things that India is doing. Plus, it generates a domestic impulses for seeking India's support in domestic politics, and counterbalancing India with external powers is another factor. So India's policymakers therefore have to deal with soft and hard options along with balancing bilateral and unilateral options. So basically we have since quite some time now have a non-reciprocal approach that we don't demand one for one, two for two. We basically say, okay, let us see what we can manage together. We are willing to give more than what we get. So this is the kind of policies that we have now put in place for quite some time. Because India, as you know, is the first responder for disaster management, counter-terrorism cooperation, development cooperation, and India remains an important factor in our neighbors. Next, please. You heard a sort of a longish background to Bengal and how partition came, etc. But the emergence of Bangladesh, I shall not get into any history here, but I will focus on certain points that, like highlighting the emergence of Bangladesh and the breakup of Pakistan, was a significant geopolitical event during the height of the Cold War. Because it was at that time when the USA and China were getting together to sort of counter the Soviet Union. Now, we all know how East Pakistan was subjected to, very, bitter sort of exploitation. And, funnily enough, both the partition took place and the Muslims of Bengal welcomed it heartily. Within Jinnah's lifetime, the troubles had begun, particularly over language. And you are all aware of it. There is a language movement which began, and today we also have an international language day which we celebrate. So, nationalism can take various forms. It had taken, during Pakistan's movement, it had taken a particular form where religion became the sort of benchmark. But then Bangladesh used language as the beginning of their nationalism, which of course changed later. And you've heard how the legitimate claims of Mujibur Rahman, etc., were set aside, and the West and the East sort of just couldn't get their act together in terms of getting a democratic setup going. Of course, Pakistan was under the military dictatorship, and the military dictatorships are the most sort of undemocratic kind of sort of thinking they have, because they come from a particular background. Now, there was genocide in Bangladesh, etc. The mass killing of intellectuals was one of the worst events that took place, which also all these events led to the largest influx of refugees into the neighboring states of India. Next, please. Bangladesh is not a small country. I mean, it may look small on the map, and I shall get to some maps later, that it has its 8th largest country in the world, among the first 10 in terms of population. The size is small geographically, and it has quite a lot of things going for it economically. I will deal with that later. Bangladesh is our 3rd largest civilization born, shared history, longest land border, by the way, 4,096, and also maritime borders. So, and of course, there's India's role in the liberation movement. So, Bangladesh also geostrategically occupies a space in the Indian subcontinent which constricts India's connectivity to the northeast. When they were all together, then this problem wasn't there. But after partition, this problem arose. These connectivities, rail, road, whatever, were sort of broken up. So again, we are now looking at these connectivities in a more sort of constructive way. Next slide. I think there's a blank slide within map. I personally like to have a map wherever I'm sitting because it gives me a perspective. And I think this is a very useful way of remembering that where is your neighborhood, what is beyond your neighborhood, which are the countries. So when we talk of geostrategic and geopolitical maps are very essential. That largely makes it inevitable, given Bangladesh's position in the Indian subcontinent, that our strategic sort of interests and will sometimes be congruent, but sometimes it will be in conflict, despite all the shared heritage, etc. Now, basically today we have reached a stage where we are looking at so many sort of issues with Bangladesh which are all positive. But there are elements of irritants which we have to deal with. I shall come to that. Next slide. These slides are essentially to remind ourselves where we are. Who are the countries to the east, north and east? And so please keep changing the slides in a minute. And then we have a focus on India and Bangladesh and the northeast. You can see how Bangladesh abuts into the Sri-Lankan corridor, creating a strategic dilemma for us. Next. Here is Bangladesh in the physical map. You can see some of the main Kolkata, Chittagong, and the other states around. Next, please. And this is the northeast. See where it is placed, how many states are there, you all know that. Next, please. But Bangladesh and India do share a lot, and there is no doubt about it, and we all know what they are. Cultural, we have our national anthems have been written by Kavi Guru Rabindranath, and Bangladesh shares a border with only two countries, land border. That is India and Myanmar. India being the largest. India almost surrounds Bangladesh, and Myanmar is only about 200 kilometers, etc. So Bangladesh's geography also makes it inevitable that their strategic policy has to constantly look at India and see what is happening. So the dynamics between India and Bangladesh becomes very important for their own strategic outlook and their choices that they make in their national interests. Next, please. The goodwill, the camaraderie of the 71 war, etc., the reconstruction and all the help that we have given to Bangladesh, it was a tragic time, and Bangladesh went through a lot of turmoil, with displacements, with reconstruction, etc. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is undoubtedly the most prominent leader, but was unchallenged for some time, but there were lots of conspiracy. Here I want to mention one thing, that it is incorrect to assume that all those who were in East Pakistan wanted independence and that they wanted a free Bangladesh. I would not agree with anybody who said that all the people there, all of them wanted. Many of them did not want it. They thought they were looking at it through the prism of Pakistan, the Muslim League legacy, etc., etc. And those people remained, and they formed the backbone of the, people like the Jamaat-e-Islami, the Bangladesh National Party. They are the people who support them. I would estimate that such people vary between 25 to 30%, and although less now, but there are there, that thinking, the legacy of that Muslim thinking continues. Now, what happened was that the first 4 or 5 years, this reconstruction and settlement was taking place. But then what happened? Because of certain domestic political things, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman's attempt to bring together fractious political elements, make one single party, etc. This led to a lot of problems. The left wing was also up in arms. And then, of course, the Pakistani trained generals who had come back were sort of there in the army, so their thinking, etc., was what they had learned in Pakistan. So then, of course, what happened was that we had the coup d'etat, the military took over, their man took over, and he started experimenting with a new kind of nationalism because he felt that secularism was not the correct thing for Bangladesh. So he removed secularism, brought in Islam, brought in certain physiology which says we will only function with true belief in Allah and things like that. So basically he tried to build another model in Bangladesh where his nationalism was no longer the language nationalism. It was based on Islam, Islamic nationalism. That's what he wanted Bangladesh to be. And because he saw that the experiments with socialism, etc., that Mujib had tried, and he was also, some people alleged, involved in some way, or at least he knew that the assassination was being planned. All these things happened in 75. And a new phase began in the India-Bangladesh times. But before that, there were several foundational agreements that were signed, which were connectivity, telecom, the JRC was formed, the Friendship Treaty, Atomic Energy, the 72 Trade Agreement. All these were signed during Mujibur Rahman's time. Then, of course, the coups happened. Then we went into another phase of military dictatorship. Our relations became, it became cool and if not hostile to some extent. And Zia's ideological orientation was different. And although he was a freedom fighter, but he probably thought more like a Pakistani general than a Bangladeshi. Next slide. But after the two military dictators went down after the agitation and democracy was restored in 91, not that we didn't deal with Bangladesh, we kept on dealing with them. But then we couldn't get into the bigger things like signing major agreements and things like that. So it is true to say that, for example, the first major agreement after the military dictatorship went away and we had restoration of democracy was the 1996 Chakrabarty siege. So the democracy returned in 91. First, of course, there was a BNP government. Nothing much really we could do apart from carrying on the normal business because they had a particular, as I said, BNP is kind of bears the legacy of the Muslim League. So their thought process, their attitude was different. And but then again, the Gangawaters Treaty, so we call it, BNP Jamaat government again came back in 2001, 2006, and we call that period again a misfortune. Nothing much happened. So then again, the next phase begins basically in 2007. This is when I went there as High Commissioner in 2007 January, which is when this caretaker government was changed supposedly with the help of the army, and the army came back into the political arena to some extent, not directly, but through reorganizing the caretaker government under which they started taking certain steps. Now, my impression is, because I dealt with all of them at that time, is that they were keen to restore ties with India. So we definitely dealt with them because we felt that regardless of the government and its nature, we will have to deal with Bangladesh and because of our geostrategic and other reasons. So security and intelligence cooperation began. They started cracking down on some of the insurgent groups, etc. Now, later on when elections took place in 2008 and Sheikh Hasina came back to power, that was when the real changes started. Because that was when we started doing things. But even during the caretaker government, if you remember, in 2008, the first train started from Dhaka to, because they really supported these connectivities. Earlier there was a bit of of hesitance, they try to use this connectivity, thinking that India will gain more than Bangladesh. The usual suspicion remains about India's intentions. But once we try to explain to them that this would help both sides, ultimately connectivity is so important because development impulses, etc., travel along connectivity. So we started the FP Express, and I'm happy to tell you that I was on board that first train when I came to Kolkata in that train just to see how everything was functioning. And it is still going on. COVID interrupted, and today there are several of these trains in Bandhan Express. That the bus service started in Vajpayee's time, 99. So many of these things started happening, in the 90s to some extent. Some of them, but then only Awami League was involved. We couldn't do these things when BNP and Jamaat were. Then, of course, now we have gone much further ahead. We are connecting all the political perceptions have also changed. Bangladesh has decided that if we make the strategic choice of getting closer to India in most of the things there. So today we have both the leaders meeting often. We have several agreements, covering a lot of things. For example, Bangladesh has provided India cyberspace cyber or internet connectivity from Cox's Bazar to Agartala. We are, of course, laying the cables, the fiber optic cables, but this will help Agartala and from there to the northeastern region to get faster internet and things like that. So many of these things are happening, and these are very innovative things that are happening. We are building bridges, we are trying to connect Agartala to Chittagong. There are coastal shipping agreements now where let's say from Haldia, a ship with a container, it has already happened, and going to Chittagong and then to Agartala. So basically access into the northeast is something that we were always looking for, and we are getting it slowly. In return, we are of course giving a lot to Bangladesh. We have given them, you can change the slide. We gave them duty-free privileges in 2011, which helped reduce the trade gap to some extent, and today trade is perhaps going to hit about 2 billion exports from Bangladesh, which is quite a lot, and our, of course, is also about 8-9 billion. So Bangladesh should become our largest trading partner in South Asia or in the subcontinent. So much of the relationship, the broad contours have been settled, including the land boundary agreement. Mention was made of the enclaves and adverse possessions. These are settled after the amendment to the Constitution. When I was there, I toured all these places, and that was the 1974 agreement for people not it was called Uji for settling the border and enclaves. For some reason or the other, it couldn't be done. Then finally, we decided, and I was there when we took a survey, and I sat down with everybody. Then we decided, at least it was my proposal, that said that unless we change the international boundary and adjust the adverse possessions on both sides, we will not be able to solve this problem. Because the enclaves are, of course, known, they were surveyed, and we knew exactly what was there. The only difficulty in the enclave was that the people, according to the agreement, the people living there had the choice of either being absorbed in that country or moving to the other country. So that also choice was given. Some people did move and they were resettled, I think, in West Bengal and other neighboring provinces. So I believe that the boundary issues, the land boundary issues are now settled after the final agreement in 2015. We also settled in the same year or in 2014 land boundary agreement, which we agreed that we will go to arbitration, international arbitration, and we accepted the award. We did lose some of our claims, but we thought that was worth it because of reciprocal kind of thing, a non-reciprocal thing which we pursued with Bangladesh, and then we let them have a little more than what we were claiming. So that also was settled. So now there are so many other MOUs that have been signed The CBI is cooperating with them, intelligence agencies. There is a good governance initiative. There is the medicinal plants and Ayurveda initiative. So many other initiatives now there with Bangladesh and India. So it's becoming a more granular. We are building clinics, schools. Bangladesh remains our largest recipient of what we call development partnership, almost 10 billion, 9 billion, in terms of grants and loans. And of course, all this is happening when Bangladesh herself is finished building the Padma Bridge, or as we say in Bengali, Padma. The Padma Bridge is going to cause a huge sort of change in the transportation system within Bangladesh. Some economists estimate that it might add 1 to 2% to their GDP, because the internal movement in Bangladesh is quite difficult because of all the rivers and so all the bridges. The Padma Bridge will bring Dhaka much closer, for example, to the southwestern part of like Jashore and up to Kolkata. Next slide. One of the pillars on which we have decided to build our bilateral ties is connectivity. Because we do realize that connectivity really, if you don't facilitate trade, if you don't facilitate movement of people and goods, things are going to be stagnant. So hence, connectivity along the border has been one of the primary sort of goals with there. So we are connecting all the railway lines, cross-border railway lines that existed before Punch, and where you could get onto a train from Kolkata, go through what is today Bangladesh and reach Siliguri, for example. Now those kind of things we are reminding, and it's going to happen. Trains have already started, even from Khulna, a train has started to Kolkata. So this connectivity has become a very major factor. And of course, we are also looking at instant connectivity. The Bangladesh is interested in joining the Trilateral Highway project with Myanmar and Thailand. So these are some of the things that are happening. There are problems. Myanmar, we have a problem because of the nature of the government there. But we try to work with them on these issues. Next slide. One of the principal other factors that India-Bangladesh relations have really been transformed is Bangladesh's own economic development and their growth story, economic growth story. And it is certainly a remarkable story from a country which was the poorest in the world and today is growing at 7-8%. Even during COVID, for example, Bangladesh grew at 2.5%. So, and Bangladesh's GDP has grown, its exports have grown, and which is a very heartening factor because it has given a lot of economic stability to Bangladesh. So let's look at a little bar chart. Next slide, please. You can see the growth pattern during the height of COVID. It was about even 2020 it was 3.51. It's come back to about 6 or so. And it has again in 22 it is expected to become about 7.5. So this is a remarkable story. Whereas in India, during the height of COVID, we had negative growth. We went down to I don't know how many, minus 7%. Next slide. The Asian Development Bank, which does a lot of studies, so do the World Bank, are very upbeat about Bangladesh because of all the sort of infrastructure progress that has been made, the metro projects, economic zones that are coming up, including 3 exclusive economic zones for India, in the sense of where Indian companies can go and invest, they'll get a piece of land, they can build factories, etc. Of course, then there are some negatives in terms of the economy and commercial dealings. One of them is poor banking regulations, and of course the pandemic, the thing that we all suffer from is corruption. Next one, please. Now this is the regional outlook that has been put out by the ADB. And you can see Bangladesh is at the highest level of growth, higher than India, and higher than all the countries. Almost almost like Vietnam. And Vietnam, as you know, is also growing pretty fast. Next slide. So, per capita income, you may have read stories that Bangladesh per capita impact has surpassed that of India. It sort of fluctuates because there are different ways of measuring it. But people under the poverty line have gone down to less than 9% of the population. So Bangladesh has done well in its economic indicators and social indicators. More girls are in school, education, etc. has gone up, and they also have a very large diaspora. It sent back a lot of remittance, and even the pandemic management has been quite successful because they didn't have the kind of deaths, etc. that happened. Why, I don't know. It's a matter of research probably. Next one. A striking, thing to look at if you want to compare is between Bangladesh and Pakistan. I mean, of which it was a part. Today, if you look at some of these figures, it is very, very striking how Bangladesh has left Pakistan so far behind. And it is a matter of satisfaction for us, and we applaud the Bangladeshis for doing that. I mean, today the population of, let's say, Pakistan is about 200 plus, and Bangladesh has about 160 to 170. Bangladesh's GDP is crossed 400 billion, whereas Pakistan is still languishing at 380 or something. Pakistan's total exports is about 26 billion. Bangladesh's total exports are about 45 billion. Then you see how Bangladesh, and this comparison is so striking that I should put this slide to show you how much. Here is another graph which compares the GDP between Bangladesh and Pakistan. It's sourced from the IMF, and as you can see that in 2023 Bangladesh would be 444 billion and Pakistan would be around 400 billion. So you can see the difference, and this difference itself shows how good economic management has happened in Bangladesh. The next one. For that, there's a bit of a population chart again with the GDP per capita dollars. The red line is Bangladesh, and the green is Pakistan. Bangladesh is way ahead. Again, sort of underpinning the argument that I'm making about Bangladesh's economic growth. Okay. Building institutions is very important for setting into motion ties that they are locked into certain institutions. We have over 60 such bilateral institutions covering a whole range of things: security, trade, commerce, energy, transport, science and technology, nuclear, maritime, all kinds of things we have. And these operate in their own spaces: coastal shipping, riverine connectivity. We have the waterway agreement where the barges, etc., go through the waterways, transit and go to Assam. These are some of the main changes in connectivity that are happening. And that is why I have begun with saying that connectivity has become a very, very important pillar of our relationship. Next, please. Let me say a few words about trade. Bangladesh is our largest trading partner. And I think we will be, China is of course the largest, and China is about 18 billion or so. We are about 10, 11 billion. But what is important is that the adverse balance that is much bigger with China than with India, because we have given them certain benefits. So today they are reaching about 2 billion. So the adverse balance is reducing. Not that it will go away, but it is going to stay. Now, for example, duty-free, quota-free, many of these things are there. Of course, this does not, these figures do not include the long tradition of what we call informal trade, which is basically smuggling along the border, which some people estimate is as much as formal trade. Now, what do we do with it? Should we allow it to continue because local people benefit, or should we clamp down so hard that it creates a huge problem on the border because it's bound to lead to violence and conflict. We already have the problem of border management, in terms of illegal migration and cattle smuggling, etc. Now let me say that there are drugs also, fake Indian currency coming in, and other things which are a staple of smuggling. Despite the fact that we all have border management, one way what we decided some time back, a few years ago, several years ago, actually almost a decade ago, is to kind of have border hearts where people, without the paperwork, customs or anything, people just come with their goods, they exchange goods or they buy something in local, whichever currency they are used to, and then it helps the people on both sides who have better access to a market across the border than within their own countries. This is particularly true of, say, the hilly areas of Meghalaya, where this was started. And today it's functioning quite well. We have expanded the range of goods. Not that it is going to reduce smuggling, but it gives a certain people orientation to our policy to help the people on the border who want to buy a few things, let's say eggs or oranges or whatever, and want to sell something. So this is the kind of thing we have gone down to in the granular sense to help people. Next slide. But part of the trade goes to the land border, almost 80%, through Benapur, Petropol, and so upgrading of these border posts is very important, so that goods don't get tied up and people can move free. One of the plans was to have this BDIN motor vehicles agreement, which would mean a truck coming from Bangladesh or going from any of these countries. Instead of offloading and onloading onto another truck at the border, it can move straight through and settle. One of the other connectivity is very important is the Khawara-Agartala connectivity, the multi-modal road network, which can, when it is operational, you can actually get onto a train in Agartala, transit through Bangladesh, and come all the way to Kolkata and beyond wherever you want. So these are the kind of connectivities we are looking at. India's investments in Bangladesh are not very large. It's about 3 billion or so. But it is growing because of the energy investments that we are making, the private companies are making. And our major private companies are building, energy work for power plants, both coal and gas based. Next, please. Development partnership, of course, Bangladesh is one of our largest recipients, and social sector development is basically what gets all the money. We are helping, let's say, to repair school buildings which are damaged by floods, or building, local clinics and sort of helping them do that, drinking tubers and supporting, solar, energy initiatives. These are the kind of things that our development partnership is doing. Apart from going for bigger things like building bridges, for example, over the river Beni, Tripura, which will connect Agartala with some room with the Ramgarh and then down to Chittor. So that's the connectivity. Bangladesh provides the largest number of tourists, legitimate tourists, those who take visas and come to India. There's a bigger mention here, but it's much larger now, and it's almost 2 to 2.5 million before the COVID hit us. So we are a major sort of provider of visas to the Bangladeshis. And they come here, connect people to people, ties, build, and they, of course, this also includes education and other things. Medical treatment is a very important thing. So one of the next slide. Let me come to some challenges and you're all aware of it. I think religious radicalization in Bangladesh started way back when Zia took over, and he encouraged all those who had fled Bangladesh because they had collaborators of Pakistani army. They were allowed to come back, and because of his Islamic orientation, he wanted to build his own party, etc. What dictators tend to do, that's what he did. And he generally followed the Pakistan model. In a discussion, I remember I asking that there are two kinds of madrasas in Bangladesh. One is called the Qawmi, the other is the Alia. The Qawmi ones don't get government money, they follow their own curriculum, and they refuse to listen to the government. And they get money from abroad or wherever. And the Alia ones are government controlled, where the curriculum is managed by the government, so they are more mainstream in terms of that. But the Qawmi madrasa people who come out, it's tragic that they are unemployable in the sense that in the modern economy, they have no skills to be employed. So they either do unskilled work or they go and open another madrasa or something like that. And so that's the kind of circle which keeps growing. And that creates a certain class of people who are very easily manipulated. They are the ones you see on the streets demonstrating that something happens. So this is something that nobody knows how to really solve. The Bangladesh government has tried to tell them, you come and join the Alia madrasa system, but they have refused because these people control a lot of these madrasas and they don't want to let go. It is a very deep vested in these. The other challenge, of course, is the illegal migration, which we have faced for a very long time. It has come down a little, but it's still happening. There's a very interesting project that was done in Dhaka University by Professor Amul Khan, which looked at dispossession of land. And he came to the conclusion that about 500 to 600 Hindus leave Bangladesh every day because they are dispossessed or they are harassed, etc. They sell their land and come. Now, he has predicted that by the year 2030, although I don't agree with this prediction, that Bangladesh will have very few Hindus. Now, this is by a very famous economist. Now, the fact remains that Hindus have borne the brunt of the migration issues. And they migrate because of, you know what, I think there are many here, including me, my family migrated also, very early before the partition. So there are many who have migrated. And so today, let me show you a little chart which shows the trend of migration of Hindus from what was East Bengal, East Pakistan, and now Bangladesh. So you can see how the population has fallen. From 1901, it was 33%, and to 2001, that is about 100 years, it's now 9.2%. And gone further down a bit in 2011, I don't have statistics on 8.6, but you can read it up. So this has been the trend of migration, at least of the Hindu. The Muslims have migrated, of course, for various reasons. They're not now, but they've been migrating during British times. The British actually encouraged this migration. And into Assam, Bengal, wherever, tea plantations, agriculture, all these things. But even after Bangladesh has become independent, there has been migration. And it's so very visible. And, I live in Delhi, and it's very visible here also. I'm not joking. You can see the working people here in many places, they are Bangladesh. Although they deny that they are Bangladesh. Now, our neighborhood policy has of course been impacted mainly because the main impact has come from the China-Pakistan axis and their strategic nexus, which basically seeks to undermine India's ties with countries. And it's Pakistan's money, and it's China's money and Pakistan's Islamist networks that work together in some of these countries. You might have read about the recent incident in Maldives, where there were very strong Islamist constituents, where they disrupted a yoga sort of demonstration that people were international yoga, they came in and disrupted, beat up the people, etc. Now, Maldives, of course, 100% Sunni Muslim. But there are people who come under the influence of these networks. So in our neighborhood, our biggest challenge is this China-Pakistan nexus, which seeks to undermine our ties with China. Does it in a different way, Pakistan does it in a different way, but they get together when it is, when they think it's in their benefit. So this is a foremost geostrategic challenge for India. But India has also come up with certain sort of programs. Sagar, for example, is helpful, but we are also trying to get Bangladesh to join up to our defense and other intelligence and other cooperation, which has grown over the years. But Bangladesh has, since Zia's time, they went into buying a lot of Chinese equipment. So military hardware that the Bangladesh army has about 70% Chinese origin. Not that they are happy with it. I can tell you the generals I used to speak to, they were not very happy with the quality of the equipment, but they had no choice because it was given at very cheap rates. China has recently gifted or sold a submarine also to Bangladesh. So they are building a little submarine sort of jetty for them, somewhere near Chittagong. So we watch these things and we see that how far this will go. We keep watching it. And we take countermeasures, some of it which I will not be able to say this in public. But then China's rise, next slide please, China's rise has impacted not just geopolitics and geoeconomics in our region, but I think globally. And that is a fact of life that we have to deal with. And the international order is under stress. China's, under Xi Jinping, China has decided that it has arrived. And it has, it must now assume a pole position in the international order. And this has put her in conflict with many countries, including India, the USA, in the South China Sea. It is in a conflict relationship over the capture of those islands, which they have captured, and some of them they have actually militarized. So this has been China's sort of general approach in this last decade or so. So where do we place, how do we deal with it is of course a matter of policy, and we have instruments, we do things, and we do advise and sometimes consult with Bangladesh to just tell them that please remember what has happened to Sri Lanka. Basically, Sri Lanka has now gone down the tube. They have no money to buy food or fuel because Chinese commercial loans have sucked out most of their money, foreign exchange. And so today they are begging. Sri Lanka, a country which has some of the highest social and economic increases, is on the streets begging for food, for fuel. We are trying to help them. And strangely, China is refusing to help, having got them into this debt trap. So I think this is a lesson for our neighbors. I think Nepal, Bangladesh, and Maldives have absorbed those lessons. Bangladesh, of course, is much more conservative in accepting those. But it prefers what we call soft loans rather than commercial loans that China. China has also been threatening Bangladesh that don't you ever, join the Quad, for example. But that's another story to Quad. So I think these are some of the broad issues that are there today, which we are following. But one thing you must remember, because it's a given thing in international politics, and that a small country will seem to balance a big country through certain ties, etc. Even when Jinnah was alive, he went to Washington and offered Pakistan, saying that you can use us for your purposes of the Cold War, etc. And that's how the thing began with the Cold War. Pakistan became an ally, still a non-NATO ally on paper. So these are the kind of things that happen when even bigger countries, powerful countries, see allies in whatever the global thing. The US has allies. This is the kind of thing that the Warsaw Pact, of course, that broke up. So China card is going to be our major challenge. Pakistan is less of a challenge because today it has no money. And it is also facing a situation in Sri Lanka is facing. It's asking everybody for loans. The IMF is going to give it some loans, I believe. China has agreed to give some loans. But a surprising thing is that China has virtually abandoned Sri Lanka after doing what they did. So I think these are lessons that our neighborhood has been absorbed, I'm sure. And we, of course, have generally decided that SARC, let it continue, but no new initiatives are happening in SARC because they get blocked. So we went in for the sub-regional BPIN, and we shifted our gaze to BIMSTEC. You remember in the 2014, I think, big summit, Mr. Modi made it a point to invite all the BIMSTEC leaders to Goa and summit to take place. So there is a certain shift in India's foreign policy and gaze towards the east. The look east has become a more robust version at east. But how do we do it? COVID pandemic has caused a huge setback. But we are recovering. I think we are going to renew all those things that we have planned. Now, what is the huge roadmap is basically the financial ties in Bangladesh are going to improve. But there are issues in the future, like what's going to happen in the next election, who will come to power, what kind of government they will have. But connectivities and other things are going on. I don't think that will be disturbed. But then the composition of the government sometimes creates doubts as to how they will look at India, how they will. I must add here that it was Sheikh Hasina's initiative in dealing with the insurgents, the ULFA and ATTF and all this, that led to the transformation in ties. Because India's main concern in Bangladesh was this succor and the refuge that these people got there. Now this was a legacy of the Pakistan times, followed by the military government, ANP Jamaat, who had a little bit of hostile sort of attitude towards India. So I think that phase is over. So I think that created a good ground for all the transformation that has taken place. There will be irritants. Neighbors, we will always have some irritants or the other. The border management is an irritant in the sense that smuggling takes place, there are counter-smuggling, all these things happen. They get into conflict with the BSF. There's a huge mafia on both sides indulging in these criminal activities. So border management has basically to deal with a very criminalized sort of border at certain areas where these things go on. But they don't pose any existential threat. But it does create a problem. Drugs, fake currency, some of it comes from fake currency mostly comes from Pakistan to Nepal, and then it somehow reaches Bangladesh, and then into India, and it also comes down from Nepal. So this is the kind of thing. The FICN, we call it, fake Indian currency notes, is not a huge, it cannot really disturb the momentum of the Indian economy, which is very large. But what they do is that it goes into funding criminal and terrorist activities. So this is one of our major problems that we look at. And we have a lot of good cooperation with these agencies in these countries to look at these things. So in my view, the future looks bright. And there will be challenges, there will be irritants. On my last point that I would like to dwell upon is, of course, the river sharing of waters, or the sharing of river waters. This has been a major issue. The only agreement we have is with the Ganga Agreement. And Tista is sort of was kind of initiated but never signed. You all know the reasons. West Bengal government is not in favor of it. They don't approve of the sharing formula to water. The problem here is, in my view, is that water availability per capita will go down in future. Climate change, then building of this run-of-the-river power plants, etc., the demographic change on both sides, the very heavy water-intensive cultivation of rice for food security purposes, which is logical. But then how do you deal with it? You cannot augment water, in the lean season. The only maximum water we get is in the monsoon, when we get flooded. But we don't know what to do with that water. We don't have facilities to store the water and use it later. That requires lots of land. So this is a dilemma as to how to deal with it. Now, in one season, which is called the lean season, January to May, we have low water. The other season, after monsoon season and beyond, we have excess water. So this is part of nature, and I don't know how we will deal with this natural phenomenon. Bangladesh is a flat land, and it's a delta, and the rivers naturally overflow because of this thing. Moreover, in Bangladesh, the building of extensive roads, which is basically that you dig up mud and build a little mud, and on that to build the road. That has also created, small barriers to the, so flooding is the inevitable consequence. Then again, the old canals, etc., that we use for waterways, ports, for transportation, they've all been, silted up and covered over. So all those natural outlets for the water have been destroyed to some extent. So that is climate change. So I think ISTA is going to happen. When it will happen, I don't know. But we have to deal with that issue. We have to find solutions. So maybe augmenting the waters from somewhere and then maintaining the flow and sharing water in Bangladesh. Not that we are holding up the water anywhere, but there are dams and barrages, etc. which do hold up the water. And in lean season, the thing becomes very, very acute. Right? So with that, I think I will end my presentation, and I look forward to any questions that you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your wonderful and informative lectures. The lecture has touched every important aspect of Indo-Bangladesh relation. Now, sir, with your permission, I just want to take 5 to 6 minutes for question and answer session. If you allow me to start this. Any question from our audience, from our students, from our scholars?
Sir, one query I have. You were invested at Dhaka, and Khandakar Mustaq Ahmad is said to be behind the assassination of Mujibur Rahman. So Khandakar Mustaq Ahmad was the foreign minister when...
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No. Are you getting me? Are you getting me?
Thank you.
And your voice is not clear. I can't hear you. Can you come to the podium maybe from that?
Sir, are you getting me? Sir, are you getting me? Hello? Can you hear me, sir? Sir, am I audible? You are hearing me, sir?
Now I can. Please speak into the microphone close.
Sir, as far as I have the information, because you have been in the Dhaka, Khandakar Mustaq Ahmad, it is said that was behind the assassination of Mujibur Rahman in 1975. Though Khandakar Mustaq Ahmad was his very close friend, and he was the foreign minister in 1970 when the independent government was formed. What is your perception? Is it so, or only the family friend? Question is, what is your perception? Are you agree with this, or you are not going to agree with this? This is my question that I wanted. A clarification, not question. It is my query. Because it is said that Dalim was... Huh? Because he is only the...
My perception.
Your perception, sir. Because you have been over there, is it that Mr. Dalim was totally responsible in the episode, or Mr. Khandakar Ahmad was also involved, because he was made the president after the assassination of Mujibur Rahman?
But yes, I'm aware of that. But what there was a conspiracy, obviously, and at least people in the conspiracy. There was a power. If you ask Gupta's book on the India and the Bangladesh war, and also a very famous Professor Gary Bass, the Blood Telegram. Many of these things are there, and in those books as well. There was a conspiracy, and he mentioned Holocaust. I'd be the margins. And that, like I said, even Zia knew about that there was something brewing, etc. Now, whether there was some external hand in the story is a Pakistan. American access was also at work because there are records of Conrad started meeting American diplomats, etc. So anyway, that's a long story, it's now history. But it is true that there was a huge conspiracy. There was also, if I may say, a lot of dissatisfaction with the way the administration was being run by Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. And he, in fact, he was warned about these things that, there's something brewing, etc. But he sort of ignored it and didn't want to take them very seriously. Even some information that, there's conspiracy to even kill you or assassinate you. But he was a big man, Udar, Monchilona, so he didn't want to get involved in this conspiracy sort of news, etc. So yes, there was a conspiracy, and I think this has an impact between it still has an impact when Awami League comes to power, when in its relations with Pakistan and America, because there are people in the Awami League who strongly believe that it was a conspiracy sort of inspired by Pakistan and America.
Sir, one further childish question. It is said that when Indonesia was in trouble in 1960, Sukarno was the president of Indonesia. Jawaharlal Nehru used the service of Biju Patnaik and sent him to rescue from the Indonesia because there was possibility of his assassination. Mrs. Gandhi was delivering a speech on Lal Killa on 15th August 1975. It is said that it was information to the Indira Gandhi, but due to the behavior of Mujibur Rahman and his relation that was strained with the India, she did not any person allowed to go to Dhaka and to bring him back to Delhi to save his life. Is it, sir? Do you have any ideas about this?
These stories have been floating around for a long time, and I am not personally aware of this, but I do know that some warnings went from India to Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. There was no time to rescue him because we didn't have any any time to do it. So, but warnings were certainly sent, and we did send cautionary advisories, etc. That please be careful. If we could, we would have saved him. I mean, I faced a situation later when there was this mutiny in 2009, I think. Soon after Hasina takeover, there was like our BSF, they used to have the VDR, which has now changed its name because it was reorganized. There was a mutiny there, and there was this fear that they might just spill over, try to do something, and assassinate the leaders, including take the stuff. So these things have happened there in Bangladesh, and that is why one has to keep a very sharp eye on the British army that state is now a very professional army, but it has a history of interference in politics. So the Bangladesh army is a major institution, and they have imbibed some of these trends from the Pakistan. Fortunately, today there are no Pakistani trained generals. When I was there, when General Moin Ahmed became the general, and so one of the things he told me during various conversations I used to have with him, and he says, High Commissioner, remember, there are no more Pakistani trained generals in the Bangladesh army. So I told him, Tensa, I get your message, what you are trying to convey to me. And he was the first actually general who was from the first batch of the Bangladesh military academy and not trained in Pakistan, which many of the older generals were there.
Sir, what about the detention camp of the Bihari Muslims that were kept and not given the citizenship of Bangladesh, and Pakistan you refused to take them back after now, or they have been shifted to Islamabad?
I can't hear you, Professor.
Now I'm trying to know about the fate of the.
Look at the screen.
I just want to know about the detention camp which was in the middle of the Dhaka, about those Muslims who were not supporter for the Awami League, and it was said that you are not citizens of the Bangladesh, you have to go to the Pakistan, but Pakistan was not taking them back. Do you know that about that detention camp? Have you been over there, or they have been shifted to Islamabad?
Well, you are talking about the non-Bengali Muslims.
Non-Bengali Muslims, they were refused to grant their citizenship, right?
In Bangladesh. Some of them did go back. I think Pakistan accepted about 3 lakhs or so, but then they stopped saying we won't take any more. And so they remain there. They are settled there in Bangladesh. But then a whole new couple of generations have now passed. So they are now absorbed more or less in the general population.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question, sir. Sir, what do you think that what is the future of the hydropolitical relations between India and Bangladesh? So can you hear me, sir?
I couldn't hear you. I couldn't hear you.
Sir, my question is, what is the
future of hydropolitics relation? Though you have mentioned few things, but then what is the future? Then how could we settle down this hydropolitical relation? Because this is a very disputed area between these two countries. So, what is your suggestion, sir?
You mean the water?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Water, sir. Water.
The river waters.
Yes, sir. River water, sir.
Okay, from what I could hear, you were asking me what is the future and how do we solve the problem of the river water sharing?
Yes, sir.
Is that your question?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So let me. I've already hinted when I was speaking that this is an intractable problem given climate change, etc. Now, where do we get excess water? We get excess water which we can't control. There's flooding. So how do we manage? We are thinking of solutions to manage nature. It's not that simple. We cannot do it. So I think we will have to create, how can I say, in the canals, for example, to bring water from excessive areas into dry areas, or into channels that have dried up. We also need river water, bank training, as we say, in the sense that you have to rebuild the banks and make them more permanent so that water doesn't pout into the countryside. So it's called river bank training. When you do that for building bridges, for example, then of course there is another thing about dredging. We are doing some of these things. Dredging to make the channels better so that the water remains in the channels and does not go away. But it's very, very difficult to say that my view is that we are going to face increasing problems on water sharing. Because as I said in my presentation, that water availability is going down. And with climate change, etc., demography. One solution which some economists, others, and agriculturists have suggested is to move away from rice cultivation, which is one of the biggest guzzlers of water. But is there any political will to do that? That is the whole point. How do you make rice growers move away from other let's say dry farming crops, other crops? I don't know, because rice is such a staple for the population. So this is the dilemma. How do you do it? There are suggestions that are available, but are we prepared to implement them?
Okay, sir. Thank you very
That
much.
will need a lot of political will, because that goes into a different domain of politics, and and politicians look at votes before they think of any policy.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Now I will request our department coordinator to give the vote of thanks. Dr. Gautam Sharkar, please come on the stage.
Good afternoon to all. I feel honored and privileged to get the opportunity to propose a vote of thanks on this prestigious program. Today's program was full of knowledge and gave deep insight to the topic and also introduced to us new interesting facts. On behalf of organizing committee, first of all, I convey deep regards and hearty thanks to Professor Dr. Sanchari Rai Mukherjee, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Rajagঞ্জ University, for giving kind permission and full support to organize this program. My special thanks to Professor Dr. Deepak Kumar Roy, Dean, Faculty of Arts, Commerce and Law, Rajagঞ্জ University, for his active support and guidance to us. I would also like to thank Professor Dr. Kali Shankar Tiwari, Dean, Faculty of Science and Management, Rajagঞ্জ University, for his valuable presence and valuable speech for this program. I am also thankful to Dr. Durlabh Sarkar, Registrar, Rajagঞ্জ University, for giving us necessary administrative approval and active support to organize the program. I wholeheartedly thank and express my sincere gratitude to our resource person, Sri Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarty, former Ambassador, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, who spared time from his busiest schedule to grace the occasion, and his excellent speech will help our students, scholars, and colleagues. My special thanks to Professor Dr. Ranjita Chakrabarty, Department of Political Science, University of North Bengal, for her active support and valuable presence of this program. I would like to thank Dr. Girish Kumar Ram, Professor and Head, Department of Political Science, University of Kerala, and Professor Manoj Chakrabarty, Senior Fellow, ICSR, Department of Political Science, University of North Bengal, for active cooperation and valuable guidance. I am thankful to all professors and faculty members of various departments for their valuable presence in this program. I would also like to thank all officers, administrative and non-teaching staff of Rajagঞ্জ University who always stand by us and motivated us. I am also thankful to all the reporters of newspaper and other social media personnel for their valuable presence in this program. I would like to thank Sri Ajay Misro, Deputy Librarian, Rajagঞ্জ University, for his valuable support to us. I am thankful to Dr. Sudaita Ghosh, Coordinator of this program and Assistant Professor, Department of Political Science, Rajagঞ্জ University. My sincere thanks to all faculty members of Department of Political Science, Dr. Sumita Sinha, Dr. Mojamal Haq, Dr. Gautam Dakua, Ms. Atisha Sunar, Mr. Mrityunjay Guhaniyogi, Mr. Rajiv Shaha, for their active support to organize this program. I would like to thank Mr. Sanjay Datto, non-teaching staff, Department of Political Science, Rajagঞ্জ University. I am also thankful to all our research scholars, especially Sri Sumit Mojumdar, who work a lot to make this program successful. I am also very much thankful to all persons who directly and indirectly involved to this program for making it successful one. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our students whose presence made this program a successful one. Once again, thank you all.
নিচের নামগুলো বার করতে হবে। সবকটা বার করে সুন্দর করে সাজিয়ে রাখতে হবে।